Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we are going to be talking about 10 players that you need to pick up off the waiver wire prior to week number 1. Now, it's technically not 10 players. That's just the clickbait of the thumbnail. We're going to be talking about lucky number 13. Shout out Dan Marino. 13 players that you need to pick up off the waiver wire prior to week 1 before it is too late. But before we get on into the waiver wire for week number 1, I would like to ask that if you guys are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, that you please make sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure that you do leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you would like to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. And if you'd like my weekly rankings, as well as a guaranteed answer to every question you may have, make sure you guys check out the Patreon, link in the video description, for $7.50. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 1 waiver wire pickups. We begin with the first player that you need to pick up off of the waiver wire prior to week number 1, and that is you might just get hit with the Rico Dowdle, running back of the Dallas Cowboys, going up against the Cleveland Browns this week in Cleveland. Now, I fully understand that Rico Dowdle isn't going to be available in a lot of your guys' leagues, but if you look into the rostership percentage from Yahoo, NFL, and ESPN, it seems more likely than I would have thought that you would be able to actually go ahead and pick up Rico Dowdle. 48% rostered on Yahoo, 8.9% on NFL, and 34.5% on ESPN. Now, it's very shocking to me that he isn't rostered in above 50% on all of those fantasy football platforms. I would have considered drafting him in the 10th or the 11th round. Why? Because I think he could be the lead back of the Dallas Cowboys very early on in the season. I don't think it's going to be a scenario where you got to sit back and wait maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks halfway into the season for Rico Dowdle to get a stranglehold of this backfield. I think it could happen damn near immediately, maybe not in week number 1, but in week 2 or 3. The Dallas Cowboys are one of the best offenses in the NFL, and according to the rostership percentage, he is available in over 50% of leagues on Yahoo, NFL, and ESPN. It's very shocking to me because I really do think that anyone with enough brain cells to rub together would have taken him late in their fantasy football drafts due to the amount of upside and due to the competition around him. He has Ezekiel Elliott in front of him. Sure, I think Zeke will get some touches, and Zeke may end up being a goal line vulture where Rico Dowdle marches the team up the field. He falls over on the 1-yard line, and then you end up getting fisted in the behind by Ezekiel Elliott. But ultimately, Rico Dowdle has an insane amount of upside, so much upside that it is unfathomable to me that he would even be available on your waiver wire. So if he is available in waivers on your league, don't just have a nice stroll, a nice gingerly walk. Run directly to the waiver wire and pick up Rico Dowdle before it is too late, because if Rico Dowdle is available in your league entering into week 2 and he has a solid game in week number 1, he's going to be the number 1 waiver wire ad yet again. At number 2, we got J.K. Dobbins. Now, J.K. Dobbins is another guy that is not readily available, but if he is available, you want to make sure that you scoop him up. Running back of the Los Angeles Chargers going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in week number 1, rostered in 46% of leagues on Yahoo, 10.3% on NFL, and 77.1% on ESPN. So if you're in a ESPN league, unless you're in like an 8-man league, even in 8-team leagues, he is probably rostered. So on ESPN, it's not your best bet, but Yahoo, NFL, definitely possible. J.K. Dobbins' competition is Gus Edwards as well as Kimani Vidal. Now, the reason why J.K. Dobbins probably wouldn't be rostered in your league is because the fantasy football players in your league are incredibly nervous about his injury history, right? J.K. Dobbins is the type of guy to try to hop onto the team's private jet, stub his toe, and be out for the season. He's the kind of guy that trips in the shower, drops the soap, falls and cracks 17 different ribs in his body, and he's out for the season, right? J.K. Dobbins is as injury prone as it gets. He wakes up in the morning, rolls out of bed, doesn't calculate it correctly, falls out of bed, breaks his arm, done for the season, right? J.K. Dobbins is a injury prone player. But what happens if now he magically isn't? We've seen it happen before. Raheem Mostert, for instance, on the Miami Dolphins. Everyone always talking about how Raheem Mostert is soft as baby shit, and then Raheem Mostert rips off back-to-back seasons in Miami where he's barely hurt. So, again, this is a optimistic take. You are hoping that J.K. Dobbins stays healthy because if he does, he is the best running back by far in this backfield. I think they're going to use the tandem of J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards while they are both healthy, and Kimani Vidal is going to be kind of chilling in the cuck chair on the side, holding up their Gatorades on the sideline. Ultimately, from what we've seen, what Greg Roman has said, former offensive coordinator of the Ravens, with Dobbins and Gus Edwards, now offensive coordinator of the Chargers, they are both going to be sharing the load. Pause. So I like J.K. Dobbins a ton. I think he has a lot of upside in such a run-heavy offense with the Chargers, the biggest downside being his injury history. At the end of the day, though, if you can pick him up off of the waiver wire, just like Rico, he is an amazing ad. At number 3, we got Mike Williams. Now, we're going to stay in the part of the video where these guys are probably rostered in your league. After Mike Williams, these are guys that are much more readily available. Mike Magic Mike Williams, wide receiver now of the New York Jumbo Jets, going up against the San Francisco 49ers in San Fran this week, rostered in 44% of Yahoo leagues, 34.6% of leagues on NFL, and 72.9% on ESPN. So just like J.K. Dobbins, if you're on ESPN, sure, you should still go check if Mike Williams is available, but he's probably not going to be available. Why do I like Mike Williams? I like Mike Williams because while he has that injury-riddled narrative that's on J.K. Dobbins, to me, it is a little bit more fugazi, a wazi, and a woozy when you're talking about Mike Williams because the guy has been relatively healthy over the last couple of years outside of last season. Mike Williams suffered a torn ACL very early on into last season, and as we know, I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins, but tearing your ACL isn't as crazy as it was 10 years ago. It's not something that's going to end Mike Williams' career. Plus, Robert Saleh, head coach Xerxes from 300 of the New York Jumbo Jets, has said that Mike Williams will be good to go in week number 1. Now, I'm going to roll him out there, throw him into the fire, throw him to the dogs up against the 49ers in his first game back. Fuck no, baby, unless I'm in a super deep league. But Mike Williams, being the number 2 wide receiver on an Aaron Rodgers offense, possesses a ton of upside. I think if Aaron Rodgers is just about 75% of what he used to be, and if Mike Williams is the same Mike Williams from the Chargers who rips off top 12 games on the regular, Mike Williams should be rostered in your league. At number 4, we got Jalen Polk. Now, Jalen Polk is a guy that is readily available. Wide receiver of the New England Deflatriots, going up against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati, rostered in 23% of Yahoo leagues, 4.4 of NFL leagues, and 28.6 or 28.8 on ESPN. Now, Jalen Polk is in contention to be the number 1 target on the New England Patriots in his rookie year. The biggest problem with that is he's on the fucking Patriots, right? The quarterback situation's very dicey. I think we end up seeing some Jacoby Brissett because obviously he is the starting quarterback on the team. Gerard May already said that, but I also think we end up seeing some Drake May play at the quarterback position as well. I think Demario Douglas is going to have a lot of solid playing time on this team, but outside of Demario Douglas, the world is Jalen Polk's oyster because there isn't a crazy amount of depth on New England that's going to be taking away a serious amount of his workload. I get they have guys like Kendrick Bourne there, they draft Baker, but they get rid of Juju Smith-Schuster, and I really do think the team is very confident in Jalen Polk. Why do I think that? Because every single time you opened up Twitter when there was training camp practice going on for the Patriots, you are seeing the Patriots beat reporters beating this dude off with aggression. They are sucking on his schlong, a Bella Danger style, and I really do like the prospect that Jalen Polk is. And the best part about him being on the Patriots, sure, the quarterback play might be pretty shit, but the upside is they are going to be down in games. They are going to be down for the count. They are damn near 10-point dogs in week 1 up against the Cincinnati Bengals. The sports books do not respect them. They think that the Patriots are going to get clobbered, Clubber Lang style, game in and game out. And I really do think that when you're down in games, I just know this. I know this to be true. When you are down in games, you can't run the ball. You have to throw the ball a ton. I think that's going to make Jalen Polk a lot more consistent. Now, I'm not going to start him in week number 1 up against the Bengals. I kind of want to see what his usage is like. But I think this could be a guy that come the end of the season, we might say Jalen Polk was a league winner, which is why I told you guys draft him. At number 5, we got Jaleel McLaughlin, running back of the Denver Broncos, going up against the Seattle Seahawks this week in Seattle, rostered in 34% of leagues on Yahoo, 7.2% on NFL, and 39.2% on ESPN. The Denver Broncos get rid of Samaje Perine, who is now on the Kansas City Chiefs, so the backfield is essentially Javonte Williams, Jaleel McLaughlin, who got a lot of run last year, a lot of looks last season, and Audric Estime, who is a rookie. Jaleel McLaughlin is the clear number 2 on this Denver Broncos team that showed a lot of upside last season. Now, he wasn't out there slashing and dashing his way through defenses. He wasn't having these insane in the membrane games where he's dropping his nuts into the mouth of the defense. But what he did do is show up a bunch when you watch the game. You watch the game and you're like, whoa, Jaleel looks good with the ball in his hands. Jaleel is a very competent backup running back at the NFL level. He is also, if you are in the worst scenario possible, right? If everything has gone wrong, if everything has gone tits up, you can start Jaleel McLaughlin. Now, obviously, on my weekly running back start sits in my running back rankings video, I'm not going to be giving him the Suka Lamink special, right? I'm not going to be like, you got to start Jalen McLaughlin. But if Javonte Williams was to go down, knock on wood, we don't root for injuries, in a Sean Payton offense that loves to target the running back position, Jaleel McLaughlin could be a guy you pick up now. He's chilling on your bench. Maybe you have to play him 1 week because another one of your running backs goes down. But that's a guy where if something was to happen to Javonte Williams, would have a crazy amount of touches. And again, he showed us last season that he is a very solid player. I get the Denver Broncos on paper aren't really the best of teams, but in a Sean Payton offense that breeds great running backs for fantasy football, he's definitely a guy I would want stashed on my bench. At number 6, we got Jaylen Wright. And in my opinion, you can't go wrong with Jaylen Wright. Now, obviously, if Mostert and a chain end up staying healthy all season, then you're kind of stuck in a box with Jaylen Wright. But that's the same case with a lot of these running backs, right? If Javonte Williams doesn't end up getting hurt, I guess you're not mad that you have Jaleel McLaughlin, but you're not super excited, right? Knock on wood, we don't root for injuries. All Jaylen Wright needs is Mostert or Achane to get hurt. Again, knock on wood, I'm a Dolphins fan. I hope they don't get hurt. But if they were, Jaylen Wright steps up into the batter's box with loaded bases, right? He is in the perfect fucking scenario. We talk about how Caleb Williams enters into this amazing situation in Chicago. They bring in Keenan Allen. They draft Rome Odunze. They have DJ Moore. They have a top half offensive line, right? For the Dolphins, they have one of the best run scheme head coaches in the National Football League, that Shanahan tree, and they are going to use multiple running backs every single game. So Jaylen Wright doesn't even need to become the number 1 back to be startable in fantasy football. And with how good this rushing attack is in Miami, Jaylen Wright is certainly a guy that you want sitting on your bench. Now, McDaniel also came out today and said that they want to use a rotation at running back, which everyone should have known. I'm just making this very, very clear that Jaylen Wright is still going to see probably a couple of touches every single game. Now, is he going to end up pushing the other guys to the side and the cream rises to the top? I don't really think Jaylen Wright is the best running back in this backfield. I think Achane as well as Mostert are better than him, but Raheem Mostert is old as fuck. He was playing football when the Flintstones were driving around yabba dabba doo in that rock car or whatever it was. The rock says wheels, right? So Jaylen Wright, who's available in 21% of Yahoo leagues, 3.6% on NFL rostered. He's actually available in more percent of those leagues because he's rostered in 21% on Yahoo, 3.6 on NFL, 23.1 on ESPN. Do not overthink it when it comes to Jaylen Wright. Obviously, if you need to drop him at some point, pick someone else up, that's fine. But the amount of upside that Jaylen Wright possesses due to how good the Dolphins offense is, there's a reason why people are drafting him with their last round pick in fantasy football draft. So if he is available, make sure that you pick him up. At number 7, we got Jordan Mason. The numbers Mason. What do they mean? Running back of the San Francisco 49ers going up against the New York Jumbo Jets this week. Jordan Mason is now the clear number 2 running back on the 49ers, in my opinion, as we ended up seeing Elijah Mitchell get thrown onto season-ending IR. Terrible for Mitchell, but great for Mason. There was also some talk that maybe Jordan Mason would be able to eclipse Elijah Mitchell on the depth chart, but now that there's an injury, it don't really matter. They still have another running back as well that will see some touches if McCaffrey was to go down, but I think that Mason, based upon everything that I've read out of training camp, all of the praise he's been given, should have that number 1 job if something was to happen to McCaffrey, and McCaffrey is already injured, rostered in 27% of Yahoo leagues, 2.4% on NFL, and 16.9% on ESPN. Now, Jordan Mason is the definition of a handcuff. Why? Because Christian McCaffrey gets so much usage that you would never even, in the worst scenario possible, consider starting Jordan Mason because of the small amount of touches that he would get. But, and this is a big but, shout out to Mia Malkova, if Jordan Addison was to get the start, McCaffrey goes down, then Jordan Mason would be a top 10, top 12 running back in my rankings on the week, because again, this is a team with that Shanahan amazing run scheme, and this is a team that wants to use a workhorse back. So basically irrelevant every single week unless something was to happen to McCaffrey. Knock on wood, we don't root for injuries. At number 8, we got Dontayvion Wicks, wide receiver of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia, rostered in 29% of leagues on Yahoo, 6.6% on NFL, and 20.2% on ESPN. Now, Dontayvion Wicks is, in a way, kind of a handcuff wide receiver, which is something that I have never even really uttered in my fucking life. Because no teams really have a handcuff wide receiver, but Dontayvion Wicks is legitimately that. This dude was incredibly productive while playing not the most amount of snaps last season. Now he's buried in the depth chart behind guys like Jaden Riley-Reed, behind guys like Christian Watson, as well as Romeo Dobbs. But if one of those guys was to get hurt, Dontayvion Wicks would instantly get elevated into a top 3 role on the Green Bay Packers, which is an offense that spreads the ball out a ton and could end up being one of the best offenses in the NFL. Now, week number 1 up against the Eagles, who'd probably be playing 4th fiddle on the team, which I don't even think is really something that people say. It's not really an analogy. It's 2nd fiddle, but fuck it. Dontayvion Wicks is playing 4th fiddle, right? He's behind Watson, in my opinion, behind Dobbs, and going to be behind Reed in terms of playing time. But being rostered in 29% of Yahoo leagues, 6.6% on NFL, and 20.2% on ESPN makes him interesting to me. In the worst case scenario, you can start him because while he doesn't play an insane amount of snaps when the other guys are healthy, he is incredibly efficient with the touches that he gets. And with the Packers offense being so great, with them being able to beat down on teams, in my opinion, and I think Jordan Love is going to be very consistent this season, that could lead to Dontayvion Wicks having a very solid game. If you just randomly have to throw him into your lineup, he will truly strive with an injury ahead of him, and with a guy like Christian Watson, who I love, being kind of not the definition of the healthiest fucking guy on earth. That makes me very positive on Dontayvion Wicks. At number 9, we stay with the wide receiver position, but we move to the desert. We move to Arizona, going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo, rostered in 15% of Yahoo leagues and 16.7% on ESPN. But before we break down Michael Wilson as well as players 10, 11, 12, and 13, I would like to give you guys a quick word from our friends and our partner over at Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is the best place to play NFL Pick'em in the whole entire universe, and Underdog has a great offer for you guys today. If you're a first-time depositor using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you'll be able to claim claim your free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash. You will also receive a free pick of Travis Kelce higher than half of a total yard in week number 1 up against the Baltimore Ravens. All he has to do is get 1 yard and that pick will hit. So you're going to match that with another pick. Now that could be a pick from Thursday's game, Chiefs versus the Ravens. It could be from Friday's game with the Packers going up against the Eagles, or on one of the games on Sunday. Once you go ahead and do that, so for instance, we're to do Isaiah Pacheco higher than 62.5 rushing yards. You match that with the Travis Kelce pick and you'll receive 3 times what you enter into the pick'em slip. For example, we use Derrick Henry and Pacheco here. You match those two together. You put $15 on this entry and you'll receive $45. Again, if you are a new user to Underdog Fantasy, make sure you guys use promo code Notorious or click on the link in the video description. All right, we are back here. Michael Wilson, to me, is the number 2 wide receiver on the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I understand Maserati Marvin Harrison gets all of the fame, the claim. He's going to be the wide receiver 1, and that isn't even a fucking debate for me. I loved Marvin Harrison Jr. in the fantasy football draft process, and I think he is going to be a certified smash. But what I also believe is that if Kyler Murray returns to form like I believe he will, this will be an Arizona Cardinals offense that is able to put up a solid amount of points game in and game out. And Michael Wilson showed us last season that he could put up solid games. Now, again, he does get that downgrade because Harrison's there and they also have Trey McBride. But if the Arizona Cardinals end up being this breakout offense on a team with a quarterback who I really like in Kyler Murray, I think Michael Wilson is worth a sneaky stash. At number 10, we're going back to the Chargers, and we're talking about Kimani Vidal, running back of the LA Chargers, going up against the Las Vegas Raiders in week number 1, rostered in 10% of Yahoo leagues, 1% on NFL, and 3.9% on ESPN. Now, Kimani Vidal is very clearly, in my opinion, the 3rd running back on this team, behind the Gus Bus and J.K. Dobbins. But we talked about J.K. Dobbins and how the guy always gets hurt. Now, I like J.K. Dobbins this year. I've drafted him in a bunch of my home leagues. I drafted him in a bunch of my Underdog Fantasy drafts. So I'm hoping that J.K. Dobbins ends up wrapping himself in some bubble wrap and is able to stay healthy all season long. But if he doesn't stay healthy, then Kimani Vidal will end up being a serious part of a very run-heavy offense. Gus Edwards also could end up getting hurt, and that would elevate Kimani Vidal as well. Now, early on in the offseason process, it was very interesting because the beat reporters kind of had it like Vidal not going to make the roster, this, that, and the other thing. Then we see him play in preseason. He looks solid, and he makes the team. So it seems like those early reports were a bit fugazi. So Kimani Vidal, while he is the RB3 on the Chargers, he will be able to get run if there is an injury in front of him due to how run-heavy the team is. At number 11, we got MarShawn Lloyd, running back of the Green Bay Packers, going up against the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia, but the game's not really in Philadelphia. It is in Brazil. Rostered in 14% of Yahoo leagues, 1.7 on NFL, and 27.1 on ESPN. Now, with A.J. Dillon and MarShawn Lloyd being in the same backfield, to me, it was kind of just a wash, right? I wanted Josh Jacobs, and I didn't really like A.J. Dillon, but I knew A.J. Dillon would be annoying enough, right? Because it seemed like Matt LaFleur and the team liked him enough to where it's like MarShawn Lloyd wasn't really all that high on my radar. But now with A.J. Dillon out for the season, like Elijah Mitchell, season-ending injury, it ends up pushing MarShawn Lloyd up. Now they have other running backs behind MarShawn Lloyd, but frankly, based upon the college tape that I watched, I think MarShawn Lloyd is better than the guys behind him. And the Green Bay Packers notoriously like to use 2 running backs. Well, I think Josh Jacobs is a certified fucking smash inside of the 3rd round of fantasy football drafts. I don't think he's going to have that same workload that he previously had in Viva Las Vegas, where he was a touch monster. The dude was gobbling down touches like he was a fucking turkey. Marshawn Lloyd will be getting some touches every single week. Is he going to take over from Jacobs, leapfrog over him, become the guy? No, but if there was an injury in Green Bay, MarShawn Lloyd would be the guy to have. At number 12, we got Taysom Hill. Now, Taysom Hill wasn't really ranked high in my rankings. Link down below on Patreon. My week 1 rankings will be coming out shortly on there. Check that out. I also answer questions every single day on there for $7.50. But Taysom Hill wasn't ranked very high because not on every single fantasy football platform, it's very different. Some platforms, he's a quarterback. Some platforms, he's a tight end. Some platforms, you can use him as both a tight end or a quarterback. He's a tight end. You should have him. If you have one of the tight ends that you don't trust, right? If you have Mark Andrews, you don't need Taysom Hill burning a fucking hole in your bench, right? But if you have Njoku, or you have Freiermuth, or you have Dallas Goedert, you have one of those guys that's a lot more suspect weekly, you probably want Taysom Hill. Because while Taysom Hill is probably a hero or a zero weekly, we saw in preseason and we've seen last year that they'll use him as like the backup running back, right? He'll just randomly get a carry. You think it's going to Kamara, and you see number 7 or 9, whatever number, he's number 7, I think. And this fat dude, he's not fat, right? But this huge motherfucker built like Tim Tebow, they hand him the ball and he just rushes one in. Or magically Derek Carr's not in the game and tush push right into the end zone, right? Or maybe he's just lined up out wide and they throw the ball to him and he scores a touchdown, right? Taysom Hill is the Swiss Army knife, right? I'm not here to give the gawk 9,000 to Taysom Hill, but if you are in a league where your tight end is very suspect, why not pick up Taysom Hill? Because while the consistency definitely will not be there because they have other weapons on the team, he could end up being the fucking starting quarterback for a game or two this season. And he's going to get touches weekly. Now, he's not safe at all, right? He might score 1 point. He could score 0 points, but he also has 15, 20 plus point upside. Rostered in 53% of Yahoo leagues, 12.1 on NFL, 42.8 on ESPN. Again, if you don't have one of those tight ends that you love, then pick up Taysom Hill. At number 13, we move to Samaje Perine. He was a late add. CH has been placed on the IR to miss 1 through week 4. Could be back in week number 5. I don't want to talk too much about the Clyde Edwards-Helaire situation because of the stuff that was reported. It might be some mental stuff, so I wish the best to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'm not going to sit here and fucking clown on the guy, but he's out for the first 4 weeks. They bring in Perine. Perine had a case in the preseasons of the dropsies, but he is normally a competent pass-catching back. He's not amazing, right? I'm not going to sit here and just metaphorically stroke the guy off and say how great he is. He's fine. They have Carson Steele behind him, who they seem to like a lot. So I'm just kind of interested to see what his workload is like up against the Baltimore Ravens. Is he truly the Jerick McKinnon back on this team that's going to take away a bunch of receptions from Pacheco, which would suck a lot as a Pacheco guy? Or is he not really getting a lot of touches? Are they using him and Steele kind of evenly, and you just want to drop him? So that's kind of what I want to see. I want to see what happens in week 1. He's available. If he's not available in your league, I would be shocked. 2% on NFL, 0.4% on NFL, 2% on Yahoo, I apologize, and 2.2% on ESPN. He's worthy of the shot. You're definitely not starting him, though, up against the Baltimore Ravens on Thursday Night Football, which we are quickly approaching. If you guys did end up enjoying today's video, please make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, make sure you guys leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to check out the Patreon, link in the video description. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your guys' day. Check out the defense video if you haven't seen them already. And we'll be back tomorrow with running back start sit and wide receiver start sit for week number 1. And it feels like we are officially back. I love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great one. Shout out Wayne Gretzky. Love you guys. Good boy.